Hello world, and we are back. Today I am very thankful to inform you that I have permission to film inside the Hard Rock Tampa. We're going to have a super fun session going for today, and we're going to get right into some poker hands. We win a small pot at the Tampa Hard Rock before we arrive at the first hand of note. I look down at King Jack of Diamonds from the +1 position with one limp. I raise it up to $20. This brings along the small blind and the under the gun player. On a flop of King 4-5 with two clubs, when it checks to me, I'm definitely going to be betting here. We can bet smaller the more multi-way it is. We also can size up to protect against the clubs and the straight draws that are possible. I choose a middling sizing of $30. Not necessarily super good or bad, but that's the size I choose. And luckily for me, we get two quick folds. So we're on kind of a roll here at the Tampa Hard Rock before we're at the next interesting hand. I'm on the button with pocket nines when an under the gun player raises to $20 and the +1 calls. We could 3-bet this, but versus these two ranges, which should be the tightest, we're going to just call here, try to set mine. So we end up going three ways to a flop a second time. This time it's Jack 10-5 Rainbow. When both players check to me, I actually think I have the best hand here a decent percentage of the time. My opponents can easily have Ace-King, Ace-Queen, pocket pairs that are less than the 9, so we're happy to put in a bet here. Same as the last hand, we're just going to half pot it for $30. On this hand, the +1 player decides to call and the other one decides to fold, so we end up going heads up to a turn card, which is the King of Diamonds. Although I pick up a gut shot to a straight, I really hate this card, mainly because I feel like the +1 player has Ace-Queen here a lot of the time, sometimes King-Queen. Hands that are strong calling from the +1 position, not too interested in betting themselves when they have an open betting lead when the preflop aggressor checks to them, but strong enough to call a bet and then just kind of connect with this king in a lot of ways. Additionally, my opponent can just have a single ace here a lot of the time, and any queen is going to technically complete my hand, but it'll be the dummy end, so very much hate this king. When my opponent checks to me, I just check it back. The river is the 6 of hearts, and my opponent bets $75. Actually kind of a significant bet for this player. I think he definitely has a made hand in this spot. Not sure I can ever get one to fold if I raise. Kind of just hate it. King was a bad turn card, I fold, and my opponent says he got very lucky on the turn, whether he's telling the truth or not. But that brings us to the next fun hand of poker. A little bit late to the recording, but that's because the under the gun player limped, small blind limped, and I just checked my option in the big blind with King 5 of clubs. And we're three ways to a flop of Ace, King 5 with two diamonds. I pretty much love this board. When it checks to me, I still have one player left to act behind. I'm always going to check my range monkey in the middle. When I check, the under the gun player decides to bet $15. And then the small blind decides to call. With two pair, I think we definitely want to start building a pot right now. We can get value from any ace, any diamond draw, any two Broadway cards that have a straight draw. So much stuff, and we're going to raise small here because we're not too worried about too many turn cards. When I make it $40, both players decide to call, so we had it going three ways to a turn card, which is the 4 of hearts. Although 3 deuce completes, I very much doubt that's very relevant. I think my opponents are relegated to single ace holdings, sometimes diamond draws. I think we are just so ahead of our opponent's range. We're going to bet here kind of a small, kind of enticing size of 70. I'm sure the solver likes overbets in this spot, but we're going to be a little bit greedy, try to get called from the weaker portion of our opponent's range. But both players just fold on this one, so we take another hand down. This one was pretty nice to just flop 2 pair and get 2 players call a check raise. We are then dealt our first premium in pocket kings with the King of Hearts, King of Clubs in the cutoff. When the +1 player raises to $15, I'm certainly 3-betting this one. I make it 50. We end up going heads up to a flop, which is obviously Ace 6 5 with 2 spades. I hate this board for obvious reasons. When my opponent checks to me, I could just bet my range for 30%. But I just think an ace is always calling any sizing. My opponent can easily have an ace, and we get a lot of information based on what our opponent does on the turn. When the turn is the 3 of diamonds, brings 2 diamonds on board, my opponent checks to me a second time. Now I think my opponent doesn't have an ace all that often. I think I get value from spade draws, weaker pocket pairs. So we're going to bet small here, down bet our flop, 3-bet, try to get like pocket 8s and 9s and 10s and all those stuff to just be in a miserable spot and kind of have to call off versus a small sizing. But for $40, my opponent does not call. He check raises to $130.
Well, this is the worst day ever.
Was not really expecting this ever, and I actually do think that this could be just spades or 7-8 or draws more often than it is like ace-10, as I do think an ace wants to protect its hand itself on the turn. I don't think it goes for a check raise, but draws that have no showdown value but a lot of equity want to see if they can just take the pot down now or build a large one for the times their draws hit. But players under check raise the turn, so thinking that I'm either dead to 2 outs or versing a hand with a lot of equity and I'm not sure exactly what cards I'm going to need to fade, I'm just going to take the more conservative route and let this one go. Kind of hate how I played this hand across all streets, but it's hard to play kings on an ace-high board. After that, I would look down at ace-5 of clubs from the +1 position. I would raise it up $15. The hijack and the big blind we decided to call, so we go 3 ways to a flop, which is ace, jack, 4 with 2 diamonds, 1 spade. So we have a pair of aces with no really good kicker. We do have a backdoor wheel draw, which could be relevant. But as I'm monkeying the middle, I'm going to check my range to my opponent in the hijack. And he bets $15. And this opponent had been very much on the tighter side. I had never seen him bluff. The few times I did see him bet, both now and later in the session, was always with an overpair at minimum or a top pair good kicker. So I kind of hate that he's the one that put in the bet. But regardless, with a pair of aces, we're not going to fold to one single bet. I make the call. We end up going heads up to a turn card, which is the 10 of hearts. And when I check it to my opponent, he now bets $35, and I hate it a second time. Like, this is a very connected and nut-changing card. If I had king queen, I would certainly peel one. If I had like jack 10, I would certainly peel one. And so I could have all the 2 pairs and a straight, and my opponent still bet into me twice. With a pair of aces, I'm still just kind of married to it, could not find the fold at this point. When I make the call, the river is the queen of hearts. I check it to my opponent. If he bets a third time, I really don't know what story he's telling besides maybe ace jack or ace 4 specifically. But my opponent just thinks for a little bit and then checks it back. But he has pocket 4, so he flops a set, gets 2 bets out of me, and this one did not go my way. Hopefully pocket 5s does, because on the button, the hijack makes it $20. I decide to just call. I think 3-betting 5 specifically is kind of an overplay. And we end up going heads up to a flop, which is jack 6 deuce rainbow. Pretty good flop. Besides a jack out there, I don't expect my opponent to have a 6. Only one really relevant overcard in my pocket 5s at this point. When my opponent checks to me, I really don't see any point in betting. My opponent could be checking range. He was one of the more competent players at the table. And if he had like king queen, I really don't think he's going to fold to one single bet, wrapping around the jack nicely and having overcards. So thinking my hand actually just wants to get closer to showdown, I'm going to check this one back, see what develops on the turn. And the turn is the 3 of spades. Gives me a gutter to a pretty good straight. And my opponent bets $25. I think when I check back the flop, he could be stabbing with a ton of ace-high holdings, ton of actual air that thinks that he can just take it down when I check back. But having a pair and a gutter to a basically nutted straight, I'm not folding for the $25. The river is the bink 4 of diamonds. We are so good here.
This is amazing.
I thought my opponent would actually check on this card almost always, as there's an obvious 4-liner out there. But he does bet, and he overbets $100. Unfortunately for me, muscle memory just kind of took over, and I just kind of snap called this, thinking my opponent either has ace 5 specifically, or he just has complete air, nothing that can never call a raise. So versus chop or air, I decided to just call, and my opponent chose pocket jacks. So this might have been the one combination of cards that actually would have called a raise. Wish I would have just taken a second and then realized I have to min click this to like 250 for the times that he does have some kind of set, some kind of 2-pair, maybe a slow played pocket queens. Honestly, horrendous blunder on my part, but on the bright side, we still take down a pretty nice sized pot. Following that, we look down at the king of hearts, jack of diamonds in the small blind, under the gun raises to $20. I'm not really interested in 3-betting an under the gun player's range. This player specifically had been playing a lot of hands, so it's probably wider than it should be. Either way, we're still just going to call with the king jack, and we end up going heads up to a flop of king 8-5 with 2 spades. Feels pretty good to flop top pair. With a decent kicker, I'm pretty happy to just check it to my opponent, and he bets $20. I could raise here, and I probably should, as top pair good kicker is one of our prime raise candidates. We get to deny equity from all of my opponent's spade draws, all of his ace-x holding that still have some pretty live outs, but in game I decided just call here. Thought this player had a propensity to just blast off, and I think this is just a call down from me. The turn is the deuce of diamonds, and in game I was just thinking like, wow, the solver actually loves to overbet here. Expecting my opponent to bet like $60, maybe $70 at most, but oh my god, he 2x potted it to $150. Now I'm thinking this opponent is either crazy and he's just clicking buttons, or he's actually a very well-studied crusher, because that sometimes happens. Players don't really know what they're doing, but they accidentally fall into the GTO perfect lines. This player has certainly found it, whether he knows it or not, but with top pair good kicker, this is certainly just a call down. He could easily have spades, he could easily be clicking buttons, he could easily just be running the hungry horse strategy of thinking I'm capped to just one pair and thinks he can blow me off it with a big bet. We do happen to have one pair here. We are not capped, as I would just call with all my sets and 2 pairs, versus an opponent I do think is going to be bluffing just a little bit more than normal. So when I make the call, we are heads up to a river, which is the Queen of Clubs. I actually love this card. Does not complete the spade draw. I was already losing at King Queen, so if he has it and we face a big bet, we're going to have to close our eyes and call. But when I check, my opponent pretty quickly checks it back. I show my hand and he says he's actually disappointed because he rivered showdown value. Sounds like Queen X of spades or Ace Queen to me. I am happy to take down one of the biggest pots of the day with just a single pair of kings. After that, I would open pocket nines with an under the gun straddle to $40 from the hijack, and the button, who is the player from the last hand, 3 bets it to $175. Well, that's certainly going to price me out. I would need to be like 2K deep and basically guaranteed to get it all the money in the times I flop a 9 to profitably call this one. So I just fold. The very next hand that I decide to play, I have Ace Queen of spades from the low jack. I raise it up to $35. And the same player 3 bets again, this time $110. Because of the drastic sizing differences, part of me thinks he's a little bit more nutted on this one and a little bit closer to a bluff on the last one. Unfortunately for me, I believe Ace Queen of spades is a little bit better. If we wanted to play perfect, I think we're just supposed to 4-bet bluff this and just fold to a 5-bet rip. Even though I think this player actually would 5-bet rip like pocket 7s and like 9-10 suited. He was quite wild. But we're going to try to pot control just a little bit here. I just make the call. We are heads up to a flop, out of position to King Queen 8 rainbow with 1 spade. Pretty happy to have a pair, pretty happy to have a backdoor spade draw. I checked on my opponent and he bets very small, $40. And again, now I'm just getting vibes that he just is so nutted right now. It's like ace king or pocket king specifically. Kind of hate the spot I'm in, but when I have top pair and a backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, we're not going to fold to 1 bet. I decide to make the call. The turn is the deuce of clubs, so this is one where you should be overbetting, and he does not. This time he bets $60. Again, just kind of screaming in my face that he's just kind of nutted and he doesn't need a bluff. We've seen his bluff line where he overbets 2x pots it on the deuce turn. This time he bets 60. I kind of hate it, but I'm getting a good price and he kind of roped me into call. So I call a second time. The river is the 7 of spades. If only the deuce was of spades, we'd have the nuts, but instead we arrive to the river in a pretty big pot with just second pair. I check to my opponent and he goes deep, deep, deep into the tank. He thinks for like 45 seconds, and then I kind of jokingly check a second time and kind of reference, hey, you know, it's on you, right? He just nods and doesn't say a whole lot. I do believe sometimes some jokey banter in that nature can get our opponent to give up on a bluff and just check it back, give up on his bluff attempt. But this is not that guy, because after about a minute, he just rips it for like $1,000.
Well, that was unexpected.
Okay, man, you know, if you're bluffing, good for you, but I thought you were kind of nutted the whole way. Maybe Pocket Kings takes this line specifically, gets 2 small bets in, trying to milk you, and then goes for the home run when they can take a polarizing size. But with my hand, it's kind of an easy fold. I let it go, and my opponent does not show, so we will never know what he had in this one. I think that I was milked for $100, though. But on the next hand of note, I'm under the gun with pocket nines. With an under the gun straddle, the small blind makes it $40. Not really interested in 3-betting nines specifically. Even though it's late v late, it's probably the correct 3-bet, but I choose to just call this time, and we absolutely bink a set on Queen 9-3 with 2 hearts. My opponent out of position continues for $30. I don't really want to scare him off just yet. Like I said in the last hand, I would just call with my sets and give my opponents the chance to blast off, especially when I'm in position and can guarantee money goes in on the turn. When I make the call, the turn is the ace of spades. I kind of love it. I'm really hoping my opponent has like ace x of hearts, maybe jack 10, and some of the straight draws decide to use this as a double barrel bluff candidate when they can rep an ace and get a queen to call once on the flop and possibly fold the turn when a scary card comes. My opponent does not stop betting. He bets $40, and when my opponent chooses a second small bet, I'm going to put in the raise right now. I don't want him, if he has hearts or has a straight draw, to be able to name his own price and draw for cheap. We have a hand that we want to play for stacks, and if my opponent has a pair of aces, he's not going to be willing to fold. If he has a draw, he's probably going to call at least a bet on this turn. I 4x it to $160, and my opponent goes in the tank for not that long, and then just folds pocket kings face up.
There's no way that happened, but nobody was going to say anything.
Oh man, this guy, I did not get a raise in when he had a set of jacks and I had rivered a straight, and now he just gets away with pocket kings pretty cheaply. I guess the ace was a bad turn card for me, and raising on the flop might have been my only chance to build a bigger pot on this one. Nice hand to my opponent. We end up going on a mini tear, winning 3 less notable hands. Stack is growing kind of nicely before I look down at king jack in the big blind when under the gun raised to $20. One middle position player calls. I choose to just call with king jack off suit. Flop is jack 9-8 rainbow. We have top pair, good kicker. It's kind of a connected board. I check, and the middle position player goes all in for approximately $140. Now on this one, I would say when someone like 2x pots it, it's usually super nutted. But when you're in the game for $500 down to your last 140, a lot of players are just going to take their final stand here with a draw. Think he could easily have a worse jack, maybe a random 9. Maybe he just has like literally 6-7 where he's open-ended on the bottom side. When it folds to me, I'm certainly going to make the call here. I think I'm ahead of my opponent's range enough of the time where it is profitable. Additionally, if I'm behind, I do have some backdoor straight draws, have some 2-pair draw. I'm never dead on this one, and when I call, my opponent says he has a straight draw. We agree to run it 2 times, and the first turn is a queen, and I'm like, well, I guess that's him then if he has a straight draw. Brick river, and the second board runs out clean, and my opponent shows 10-8, so wish I could have held against a straight draw, but I guess I'm pretty happy that he did not go straight on me, which has happened pretty recently, and it stings when your opponent's behind but they catch 2 boards when drawing. But we are into the game for $800, out of the game for $930, which is a profit of $130 across 4 hours, equating to $32 an hour or 6 big blinds an hour.
So it was a good day, made some money. That's the important thing. Hands were fun. The players were actually very good, so that was kind of tough to deal with. But hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we will see you on the next one.